I'm calculating my Amazon investment based on what I think is not priced into the stock. So I'm making that specific assessment that Anthropic is worth something north of 300 billion, and Amazon has a substantial share of that, between 15 and 20% share of that company and ownership. And so the way I see the overall market in large language models is that I think Google's got an incredibly strong position and they have an almost unlimited financial runway because of their core business of search. Google will be one of the players at the table regardless. OpenAI's relationship with Microsoft, at least my read of it is it's more adversarial than the Amazon relationship with Anthropic, which feels calmer. It feels less strained and without as much conflict of interest. You recently saw, for example, Dario, who's the CEO of Anthropic, did a joint press release with Jensen Huang and with Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. And so the three of them did a joint press release to talk about how Microsoft is helping Azure, its platform, use NVIDIA chips to host Anthropic's models. That's a very public display. And of course, the way that was discussed also kind of mentioned that OpenAI is still a strong partner, but that felt like lip service. And it felt like Microsoft is really kind of making this customer first, customer choice first. And when customers get to choose, what are they choosing today? Enterprise customers are choosing to use Anthropic models.
I think the thing that we've seen since we had the last discussion on the Anthropic IPO is possibly a sea change. Like we've seen SpaceX, as an example, possibly announce an IPO. So what we might start to see, and maybe Anthropic kind of detected this ahead of the curve, is the companies that had been remaining private for whatever reason, some of those are starting to shift into at least maybe the conceptualization of going public. Now, the alternative opinion to that is they're using the interest of possibly going IPO to raise a larger private round, because private investors respond to the signal of a possible imminent liquidity event, right? So they want to get in pre-IPO to capture the valuation bump of the IPO. And so you never really know what's actually going to come to fruition versus what is just simply kind of the gamesmanship of private versus public fundraising. So TBD on that front. Opinion to what Shashi is laying out is how much of Anthropic's enterprise success is concentrated. Like, Anthropic really owns coding. Beyond that, they don't own much. Now, the reality is coding dominates the use of large language models currently. So in my opinion, a long-term or medium-term bet on Anthropic is somewhat too layered. And number one, you have to assume they're going to keep the lead in coding, which is, kind of its own binary bet. And then that compounds with whether or not coding is going to remain the economic kind of stable horse of these large language model tokens. So long as you think both those things are going to be true, then I think Anthropic is a reasonable choice to kind of come out of that. The challenge with Anthropic remains they don't own the distribution.